The Seattle Seahawks official 2018 schedule was handed down on Thursday, and it's time to act like things have changed, despite knowing the opponents and strength of schedule since early January. In reality, the configuration of games does matter, but only so much. More key will be injuries, as the Seahawks learned last season, and how their players, some new and some old, fill into their new roles with the team. In the meantime, everyone else is left to wonder how exactly the schedule sets up for a redemption tour in 2018. The schedule seemed to set up nicely for them in 2017, essentially alternating home and road games perfectly. The only time the Seahawks played back-to-back road games came with their bye week sandwiched in between the two affairs. By the time the season ended, they had played no games with early starts because their lone affair was flexed to the afternoon slate. Still, despite a favorable schedule, they only managed a 9-7 record because of forces outside of their control and their penchant for slow-moving starts. This schedule isn't as easy as last season's. The Seahawks have the fifth toughest schedule according to opponents' 2017 win percentage and have a few travel concerns on the schedule, namely a two-game road trip to start the season, a trip overseas to London, 3:10 a.m. PT starts, and 5 primetime games. As head coach Pete Carroll loves to do, let's break the schedule down into fourths and try to project how the team will fare. Of course, the draft and injuries and dozens of other factors will play their role, but let's live a little. It's not fun prognosticating if you're not willing to take any risks. Let's break it down. The plan to retool the Seahawks roster is nearly complete. Don't miss any updates as they try to reclaim their glory in 2018. Stay informed right along with us. Take 5 seconds to sign up for our free Seahawks newsletter now. _________. Justin Coleman is searching the kettle for run support. Photo. Tim Heitman, USA Today Sports. Quadrant 1. Road heavy, talent light marquee matchup. Dallas Cowboys record, 3-1. The Seattle Seahawks have a rough start in some regards and a perfect start in others. They'll play 3 of their first 4 games on the road, including their first primetime matchup, Chicago Bears, and road division rivalry game, Arizona Cardinals, with the other 2 teams being the Denver Broncos and Dallas Cowboys. Not exactly a murderer's row, but not pushovers either. Denver's home prowess in September is already becoming legend around the Seattle area, but you travel to Chi-Town before the weather gets loopy. Beating a new-look Denver team with a real home field advantage and new sturdy quarterback will be a tall task, but all the other affairs are more than winnable. Arguably their toughest opponent out of the slate, the Dallas Cowboys, comes to their building where they'll look to avenge their poor 2017 home record. Just 4-4 at home last season. The Seahawks likely will never be healthier than this point and will be highly motivated to show they still have premier talent and are forced to be taken seriously. They have the opponents to send that statement despite a road-heavy start. And remember, even though Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott missed most of last season, the Seahawks got a fresh Elliott on the road and were able to shore up their run defense with a healthier Bobby Wagner. Now, Wagner should be at full strength. 3 wins, and the Seahawks proved to be road warriors to start the season with 2 early road wins. The Bears and Cardinals shouldn't be a challenge if the Seahawks are who they think they are. _______. Russell Wilson gets his first look at a supped-up Rams defense. Photo. Scott Kane, USA Today Sports. Quadrant 2. Time to figure out where you stand. Marquee matchup. Los Angeles record, 2-2. The Seahawks immediately enter a middle chunk of their season that will either prove them a playoff team or show they're heading towards mediocrity or worse. These next sets of games will show if the Seahawks are a legit NFC West contender still or just buying time until 2019. No better way to prove your mettle than against the defending division champs, the Los Angeles Rams, right off the bat. The home game actually comes at a decent time. The Rams will still be trying to figure things out a bit, as will the Seahawks. But the Seahawks have the added bonus of home field advantage and added motivation of the Rams destroying them in their own building in 2017 by a score of 42-7. Many have already forgotten that Wagner wasn't right that game, and it allowed the Rams easy access with running room to the tune of Todd Gurley's 152 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 21 carries. Oh, and fellow run-stuffing linebacker KJ Wright didn't play either. Barring injury issues, Wright and Wagner will make life much harder. This win amounts to the one the Seahawks aren't supposed to get. Unfortunately, they'll give it back later on down the road by dropping 1 to the Detroit Lions inexplicably. The Seahawks have had the Lions' number of late but middle-of-the-season lulls happen every year to every team, and here's the Seahawks' time to falter with old friends Luke Wilson, Golden Tate and Deshaun Sheed getting the better of them. It also happens to be an early 10 a.m. PT start, and even coming off the bye, those are tough to overcome. The Los Angeles Chargers at home is a sneaky tough matchup, with Phillip Rivers and the defensive line only getting better every year. In the end, the Seahawks defend their home. Are we forgetting anything? Oh right, that game before the bye in London. No big deal. CBS Sports can take it from here. Just kidding. Many of you are probably wondering why the Raiders aren't the marquee matchup. For one reason, the game's not being played at CenturyLink, where a Marshawn Lynch regular season return would be epic. They'll get the watered-down version of that game in the preseason finale, where Lynch is unlikely to receive any snaps. While Lynch and Bruce Irvin will play their former team for the first time, Sebastian Janikowski sees the club that helped him make his legend on the other end. It's an interesting, solid game, but it's not in prime time and it's overseas. Evenly matched game, the Seahawks ultimately pull off, with former Raiders defensive coordinator Ken Norton Jr. getting the best of his old team as defensive coordinator in Seattle. How many ties do these organizations share? By the way, both teams will be traveling to London from the West Coast, with home games the week prior. In the end, the Seahawks split these set of games and move their record to 5-3, as they hit an even tougher part of the schedule. Blank underscore blank underscore blank underscore 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 underscore. The first Richard Sherman Bowl promises to be an event. Photo, USA Today Sports. Quadrant 3, business definitely picks up marquee matchup. San Francisco 49ers record, 2-2. If you thought the last set of teams was tough, here's where the schedule really gets loaded. 2 division rivals, 2 road games, and a 10 a.m. start sandwiched between fairly marquee football games. This slate also starts off with the Los Angeles Rams, and remember, they'll have dropped a game they feel they shouldn't against the Seahawks earlier. They also remember the Seahawks narrowly escaping with a road win last season on their home turf. The Rams avenge that loss. Next up, a primetime game versus the ultimate non-division rival, or at least the co-leader in that department, in the Green Bay Packers. And just for some added flair, let's make it Jimmy Graham's first ever return trip to CenturyLink Field on Thursday Night Football. Short rest after playing a division opponent on the road. Angry rival. Emotional return. Who knows what kind of football we are going to get, and who knows what kind of football team the Packers are going to be, with their staff overhauls and many reconfiguration of their roster. They are actually in a similar boat as the Seahawks in a way. Advantage home team on what'll likely be another wacky night for a rivalry filled with wacky finishes. Now, with 10 days of rest under their belt, they'll travel to the Carolina Panthers for their third 10 a.m. start, although to be fair, one of them was in London. Still traveling all the way east after the back-to-back bruising opponents they'll face to see. Cam Newton's punishing style of offense is no easy task and a recipe for a loss. Also remember, the Panthers were a playoff team in the hardest division in football in 2017. Also, if the Packers aren't the Seahawks' biggest non-division rival, the Panthers are. Added heat for sure in this matchup. Finally, we get to our marquee matchup. San Francisco 49ers cornerback Richard Sherman not only plays his former team for the first time, but returns to CenturyLink Field for the first time, and it's Sunday Night Football. The Seahawks have had the 49ers numbers over the years, but quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo is undefeated since leading a meaningless touchdown drive to end their last loss to Seattle. He'll surely have picked up a few losses before this Week 13 matchup, but with all the juice in the stadium for this big-time football rivalry renewed, how do the Kings of Primetime not pull through and spoil Sherman's return party? Not to mention, the 49ers still have roster work to do to even get up to the Seahawks level. Blank underscore blank underscore blank underscore blank. Who got the better end of the defensive tackle swap, the Vikings or Seahawks? We'll find out in December. Photo, Sam Greenwood. Getty. Quadrant 4, a vengeful, soft landing marquee matchup. Minnesota Vikings record, 3-1. The Seahawks truly have solid bookends to their season, and the endgame is better than the beginning. Whereas they have their easier opponents on the road to begin the season, they'll end with a slew of softer opponents at home. Their toughest opponent, the NFC runner-up Minnesota Vikings, comes to CenturyLink Field for Monday Night Football, making their second primetime game in a row and third in 4 weeks. If you're tacking it onto the last quadrant of games, it continues a rough patch of games, and after an emotional win over Sherman, this game is an easy pick to falter on. Besides that, the Vikings are really, truly good at football and arguably could be better switching out Case Keenum with Kirk Cousins. Is this the "Who Hurt You?" Oh, that's right, Blair Walsh Bowl, or the "Let's Trade Defensive Tackles" Bowl. Who knows, but Vikings defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson gets his first crack at the team who wouldn't pay him, while Seahawks defensive tackles Tom Johnson and Shamar Stephen get their first game against the organization that discarded them for Richardson. Also, playoff stakes will abound if the Seahawks schedule goes as previously predicted. They drop an important one here. Next up, it's the revenge game for the revenge game, with Seattle headed to San Francisco for part of the Sherman Revenge Tour. Different venue, same story. This win sets up a solid 3-game winning streak to end the season. They'll see the Chiefs for their 4th primetime game over a 6-week period and 4th straight at home, but even with the seasoning that new starter Patrick Mahomes will have picked up throughout 2018, the Seahawks protect home. Then, they avenge their playoff-dashing home loss in Week 17 to the Arizona Cardinals, which may have playoff stakes again this season. But no Bruce Arians means no magic this time. For the 2nd straight year, they end the season at home with the Cardinals, but this time, they actually handle business. Final record, 10-6. Final analysis, the Seahawks prove they have the talent for a bounce-back season and earn a wildcard berth by the skin of their teeth. The schedule has its twists and turns that could down their season, especially the middle 8 games, but the Seahawks have just enough breaks in the action and have their most dangerous foes at home for the most part.